What's up, YouTube? This is Bryan Sosack with the Man in Black Leather Studio. So you have found yourself needing to install your custom graduation cap topper. In an ideal world, you'd have your leather crafter actually install it on there for you. Now, some of you guys might not receive your cap and gown until like right before graduation. I know for me, when I graduated, we didn't get our caps until like 3 days before. So this is probably you guys here that I'm talking to, but I'm here to recommend how I would actually install these graduation toppers if I were you guys. Now, personally, I use good old-fashioned barge rubber cement. This is super industrial, like they build saddles with this stuff. Like, this is super aggressive. They sell a much smaller version of this. All the leather crafters use this stuff. Like, this is literally the most tried and true, like good old Chevy truck of leather crafting glue. So I'm gonna jump to it. Enough of my rambling. My number one recommendation is good old E6000. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. I will leave links in the description of a few other glues that I would recommend. This is something I just always have around the house, and I definitely recommend this. It is a little bit more of a rubber cementy kind of texture. It's not gonna dry like super hard. It's gonna have a little bit of give to it. Before we start, I highly recommend against using like a crafting rubber cement. You know, hot glue might work depending on how strong your hot glue is. It's still a little iffy. So here we have our topper and our cap. Because these toppers are like, they're kind of heavy in comparison to like, you know, little craft objects like this. This is a couple ounces. It actually has some weight and some body to it. So with that, it's just gonna have a lot of force when it moves around. So you don't wanna use something super flimsy. Go in the description and hunt you down some of that stuff. Most of it is gonna be available like at a Home Depot, a Lowe's. You might even be able to Amazon that kind of stuff. But do not use like Elmer's, like child craft rubber cement. It is not gonna be strong enough. With that stuff out of the way, I'm gonna show you what to do. So you take your glue of choice, and the only other thing you're gonna need is a handful of clips. Office paper clips. I like these big industrial dudes. They're super strong. You might have these around the house. You know, you could use the big ones. You can use the smaller ones. Buy them at Staples, Office Depot, whatever. So here we go. We got our cap. We have our topper. First things first, pay attention to which side is the front of the cap. It's kind of strange and confusing. I don't know why they do this, but it says front of the cap, but it's backwards. So the front of the cap is actually upside down when you look at it like that. I don't know why they do that, but they do that. The elastic is gonna be on the back side. Your front of cap is always gonna be marked. So I always recommend working with it in a very square grid type fashion so you don't like accidentally rotate it at all. So you find yourself your front of your cap. Be gentle. Your cap is made out of cardboard on the inside and can snap and bend very easily. So just be very careful when handling. Okay, so you wanna make sure you have your topper ready. Just kind of, what I would recommend is kind of practicing setting this down so you don't have a bunch of gluey mess going. You wanna aim and center up, obviously, that center hole, and kind of like using your 2 fingers here to give yourself a guide to find the sides. So just kind of practice. Okay, good. I think I can handle that. So move it over. Be careful not to rotate anything. So when you flip it over, you take your E6000, and this is a pretty straightforward process. The biggest thing is to make sure to apply a good amount of it. You might think it's too much, but it's better to have too much than not enough. You can apply it in kind of a spirally motion. I would recommend using probably like half container of this E6000. You want to get close to the edges, but not too close, so when you squeeze it down, it doesn't come out the sides and make a gluey mess. Squeezing down that glue to the bottom and rolling it as I go. And then you can kind of do the same process. Make sure not to leave these corners, because these corners are going to be really where your glue wants to come up at, or where the leather wants to come up at. You make yourself a beautiful artsy spider web, and you cap that bad boy. You're gonna lift this up here. Be very careful. Do a quick little rub on your surface to make sure you didn't get any glue, so that when you move this cap back over into positioning, you're not making a mess. Now, here's where things get hectic and stressful, because you have to be pretty quick. Move this out of the way, so when you flip it over, you don't make a mess. I'm going to grab by the corners, and just how we practice, try and line up and down vertically. I'm making contact here in the center first. I'm using my 2 fingers as guides to go straight down to keep it centered. I'm going to adjust the corners to where they need to be, and then gently press. Don't push too hard so you don't bend the cap. Kind of press gently, rub on it. Make sure you get that full contact. Now we're gonna come in with our clips. What's most important is that these edges stick. Doing it kind of in a spirally kind of pattern, because what I'm gonna do is, you'll see, I'm gonna come in, and then you can see I can get 4 clips per side. So we're gonna just repeat that process. Okay, now our corners are secured. We're gonna come back in, press firmly with your big open palm like this, so we get that contact. And I'm also sandwiching, pushing equally as hard. I'm doing basically this underneath. We're pretty much done. So, the cap is secured. Now, the only other thing I would do is take yourself something circular. It doesn't have to be circular. I just so happen to have my clip bucket is like perfect size for this. So what I'll do is I'll put this kind of clip bucket with maybe like a hammer inside, a setup that kind of looks like this. You could use a coffee jug. Probably you could even put some water bottles. You can go water bottle, water bottle, water bottle. Just enough to put pressure. You don't want to have a crazy amount of pressure where it buckles in. You want to have something that I would recommend maybe weighs like half a pound to like 1 pound max, and leave that sit. Now, after you let that sit, anywhere between 12 and 24 hours, I'd recommend just letting it sit overnight. What you need is at least 8 hours, but don't go exceeding 24 hours. Just because the weight of the thing we have on top is going to squish it down and kind of start bowing it out, kind of like this funky. So keep that in mind. But we're gonna walk away and come back tomorrow and see how she does. All right, it is the next day. It's time to check on what we got here. So if I know what I'm talking about, and I do know what I'm talking about, we should be looking at a properly secured grad cap topper. And wouldn't you know it, there we go. You can see it's bound pretty dang well. Now, this kind of goes without saying, don't pick at anything. This is obviously just cosmetic, only held down by glue. So if you want to give it a little test and kind of lift a tiny bit, go for it. But if you try and peel it off, it will start peeling off, because, you know, you're trying to peel it off. So here we go, a nice and pretty grad cap topper, secured nicely. I would put this on my head, but it's not mine. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful. You can check the stuff down below. I will have links to all the different glues that I recommend. Like I said, I do recommend the E6000. This, you can find this literally like anywhere. Like you could even pick this up at like Rite Aid and Walgreens even sometimes. You can see I used about a half a container or so. You could probably use a little bit more. You could technically probably use a little bit less, but I do not recommend using less. And if you do use a little more, make sure it's a little more. Like, do not dump this entire container. It's like if it's too much and you go to clamp it down and that glue starts seeping out the sides, you're gonna get weird globules that like come off the side and it's gonna look like crap. So follow the instructions and you will be good to go. Thank you guys for watching. Congratulations on graduating. You know, it's a big deal. Not everybody is smart and gets paperwork behind their names. Some people drop out of college and have to work with their hands and get arthritis and work on dead cows for the rest of their lives. So good on you for thinking about your future. Congratulations, and I'll catch you guys next time.